is an NRM candidate.
Yeah, but when you look specifically in the case of Walukaga, did the party ever do due diligence in the vetting process?
Certainly. That's why Electoral Commission nominated him. Because the Electoral Commission, just like the NUP Election Management Committee, based itself on documentation from National Council of Higher Education, which is the authority on such matters.
But after scrutiny,
also based itself on documentation from universities, because as a matter of fact, Walukaga is a university student at St. Lawrence University, I think in the 3rd year. And he was admitted on the basis of the mature entry qualifications, which he presented. Yeah,
his mature entry certificate expired.
Like I mentioned, for me, I think it would be shallow to focus this debate on a particular case, which is
it's inevitable.
Which is being handled through the appropriate legal channels, because this show is not going to make a decision whether he's reinstated or not. But I would want to look at the general landscape of how Electoral Commission is being used as a weapon to deal with popular opposition candidates that have not yielded to the machinations of bribery.
Isn't it ironical that you accuse the Electoral Commission of being sucked into this kind of mischief when just the other day the Electoral Commission cleared Senyonyi, who between Senyonyi and Walukaga is a bigger threat?
Well, I don't know the weighing scale you use to determine who is a threat and who is not a threat. But I think one thing you need to understand, especially about the concept of state capture, is that in the matrix of how decisions are arrived at, who controls institutions, it depends on the particular interest at that time and who is pushing it. But again, I always use this example that if you look at, you know the organism called Amoeba. That's how a dictatorship operates. It keeps changing shape. It keeps changing outlook. So you may, even today, you may go and have a protest in town and they will not beat you. The next day you'll have a protest and they will beat you. It doesn't mean that now there is freedom of expression, there is freedom of movement. Because they must be able to confuse people. For example, now for you seem already confused that because they cleared Senyonyi, then they are doing things in the right way. But sometimes the intention is to make sure that they confuse you.
Yeah, but when you look at the merits that the Electoral Commission, the grounds that the Electoral Commission cites, there is some water. They're talking of an expired certificate that Walukaga submitted, and that ordinarily disqualifies him.
Expired is in, like I mentioned, Simon, for me, I think it would be, I wouldn't spend an hour to come here and discuss disqualification or not disqualification of Walukaga. That is for his lawyers. For me, I'm here to discuss the landscape of Electoral Commission being used as a weapon.
I think you are equally being
some candidates.
But number two, speculative.
But number two, but I'm not being speculative because I've given you facts. There is a landscape, there is a trajectory. But number two, even if you want to specifically discuss the question of expiry, because the expiry of that certificate is in respect to admission or enrollment. Once a person is enrolled, you cannot continue going to National Council of Higher Education to get that certificate, I mean to the institution that issued that particular, to keep getting every 6 months. The expiry is in respect to enrollment. And he enrolled. I have mentioned that he's now in 3rd year, studying at a university because he enrolled. So by application of, by operation of that enrollment, the certificate cannot expire.
Okay, what are the requirements for someone to stand? You submit
USCE
valid,
or equivalent.
You submit valid academic credentials. Walukaga submitted an invalid academic credential. And that is a certificate.
But I have explained to you, Simon, that then it cannot expire. You cannot say that it has expired. But when you are going to be enrolled, when they look at it, they say, no, by the time you need to go and sit another mature entry exam because this one has expired. But once you enroll, then that hurdle is jumped. And indeed, he enrolled as a grand scheme to disadvantage NUP candidates. like I mentioned, there have been many approaches. In some cases, people have been bribed to get out of the race. In some cases, people have been disqualified on flimsy grounds. This is one of them. In other cases, they said, no, this person is NRM, how could he have seconded you as a candidate of NUP? And they have been disqualified. So it is, and I've given you example. If you think it is not discrimination or unfair, there are complaints about, similar complaints about people of NRM. Do you know of any NRM person who has been disqualified on such grounds?
Well, very interesting. I would like to bring in another legal mind, Counsel Peter Okello Jabweli. Good to have you and a very good morning. Good morning. How do we explore the depth of the new trend of disqualifications, which the Electoral Commission has chosen to call denominations?
Yes, thank you very much. It's quite interesting. First of all, we must start by giving a broader picture, because what you see what's going on is there's a script to the madness. There's a script to the madness.
Madness.
Yes. After 40 years, I think there's a trust deficit. And in most of the state institutions, you can talk about parliament, you can talk about the judiciary, you can talk about even the executive itself. And that's where the EC comes in. The EC, its primary problem, I think, is a trust deficit. People don't trust in it. And so whatever it does, people are going to raise questions about it and even doubt it further. Unfortunately, in the way it conducts business, the way it is doing these things, it's not helping its image and the credibility and building trust. We must accept the law provides for pre-nomination remedies. Someone can run to maybe courts or anywhere, but even post-nomination, because we are now in post-nomination stage. Post-nomination, the law provides for a tribunal within the EC, the tribunal. So that's a
to handle grievances.
Yes. So people are allowed to complain. To be fair to the EC, people are allowed to complain, and the EC is supposed to attend to those complaints. To that extent, yes, what they are doing is provided for in the law. The question is how they are going about it. How they are going about it, unfortunately, is, in my view, may not stand scrutiny if the courts were to apply the law strictly to the letter. Because there is what we call, I had Counsel Benjamin Katana here talking about, in the case of Walukaga, for example, the letter of the chairman, of EC itself says, quotes so many things and says, yes, the certificate or which was given to him by the IUIU, I think, was to expire after 2 years in case he doesn't enroll. Underline that. The same letter says he has enrolled and is now a student in what? Unfortunately, they don't say when he enrolled. But from what Counsel Benjamin is saying, he enrolled 3 years ago, he's in third year. 3 years ago would mean by the time he enrolled, that certificate was what? Was valid, it was a valid certificate and not expired. And so, because for me that's the issue rotates around there. Underline that, valid until you enroll. If you enroll, the validity of the certificate remains and cannot be challenged thereafter. So he enrolled. So for me, that's the question. If I heard yesterday in one of the news here on NBS, the NUP is going to court over it, I hope those are some of the matters that can be canvassed and the court will make a determination. I don't want to spend too much time. That's for the court to make a determination. But if you look at the other cases of denomination, because this is the first
Over
time.
signatures.
This is the first time this avalanche. These laws are there, by the way. They have always been there. Previous elections we've not seen. So far, how many? You are the one who follows these things. How many have been denominated? And mostly from NUP?
I think the list now comes to about 10 plus, over 10.
More than that. And if you consider even those ones who are denied nominations, the bouquet, the young ladies and so on and so forth. You see a pattern, unfortunately, and I've said already the EC has a credibility gap, and when there is a saying, when you're in a hole, you don't keep digging, you stop digging and try to get out. Unfortunately for them, they are digging. They are continuing to dig and digging deep. And this doesn't portend well for the country and for the elections. Because all these things add to a situation, a point to a trend.
Yeah, I want us to examine Article 80 of the Constitution.
Okay.
Requisite academic qualifications. That's one of the grounds that the Electoral Commission cites in dismissing or disqualifying Walukaga.
Yes, but that's very, very, very broad. The instrument or the letter of the chairman denominating Walukaga comes down to what I told you, what you should underline. Okay? It's not as broad as you want to make it. It's like, okay, you got some instruments from the university saying he had passed with 54%. That was to expire after 2 years. We've explained that. That is the hard.
Yeah, but that was from a different university, yet he's attending another university. Does it matter or it doesn't?
The reason why there is the National Council for Higher Education, which cleared him, is to make sure there is this equivalence and so on, to have a standard which applies, so that if you get to a qualification in at